All right, now we're moving on to Chapter 10. Lesson 10.1 is about cell growth, a little bit about division, and reproduction too. So our goal is to compare and contrast mitosis and meiosis and relate to the process of sexual reproduction and their consequences for genetic variation. So this first lesson is just a little snippet leading us into the mitosis and the meiosis later on. So here we go. It says the hazards of teaching young Neanderthals. Cute. All right, let's look at our objectives. To explain the problems that growth causes for cells. Yes, it can be a problem, believe it or not. And also compare asexual and sexual reproduction. Let's think about it. When a living thing grows, what does happen to its cells? What is there about growth that requires cells to divide and reproduce themselves? So our first objective is to look at the first one. Explain the problem that growth causes for cells. In unicellular organisms, the organisms made of one cell, division of one cell reproduces the entire organism, asexual reproduction. Multicellular organisms depend on cell division for a multitude of reasons, some of which are development from a fertilized cell, for growth, and also to be able to repair themselves. Cell division is an integral part of the cell cycle, whether it's unicellular or multicellular, which is the cell cycle is the life of the cell from its formation to its own division. So living cells store critical information in the DNA, and as a cell grows, that information is used to build the molecules needed for cell growth. And as the cell size increases of the cell, the demands on that information also grow as well. So you have all this DNA, but if you don't have enough to control everything that's going on in the cell, the rest of the cell, as we learned with lots of organelles, you're going to need something needs to be done. And we'll look at that why. So if a cell were to grow without limit, an information crisis will occur. It's nice to compare a cell to a growing town. The town library, this is pictured right here, has a limited number of books. And as the town grows, these limited number of books are in greater demand, which limits the access to them. A growing cell makes greater demands on its genetic library. If the cell gets too big, the DNA would not be able to serve the needs of the growing cell. Food, oxygen, water enter a cell through the cell membrane. Waste products leave the same way. The rate at which this exchange takes place depends on the surface area of the cell. The rate at which food and oxygen are used up and waste products are produced depends on the cell's volume. So the ratio of surface area to volume is key to understanding why cells must divide as they grow. So imagine a cell is shaped like a cube. As the length of the sides increases, its volume increases faster than its surface area. All right? So this decreases the ratio of surface area to volume. A 1 by 1 by 1 has a 6 to 1. 2 by 2 by 2 is a 3 to 1, and then a 3 by 3 by 3 has a 2 to 1 ratio. If a cell gets too large, the surface area of the cell is not large enough to get enough oxygen and nutrients in and waste out. So to use the town analogy again, as the town grows, more and more traffic clogs the main street. It becomes difficult to get information across the town and goods in and out. Similarly, a cell that continues to grow would experience traffic problems. If the cell got too large, it'd be more difficult to get oxygen and nutrients in and waste out. So, before a cell gets too large, it divides into two new daughter cells in a process called cell division. Before cell division, the cell copies all of its DNA. It then divides into two daughter cells. Each daughter cell receives a complete set of DNA. Cell division reduces cell volume. It also results in an increased ratio of surface area to volume for each of the daughter cells too. The human body contains a huge range of cells, actually about over 300 different types. Some divide often, though throughout life, others divide only infrequently, and then some do not divide at all after birth. The most actively dividing cells are found in the areas of the body that receive a lot of wear and tear. The cells in the living layer at the base of the skin divide often to replenish the cells of the skin that are lost all the time. The cells that line the digestive system, particularly the intestines, are also amongst the rapid dividers. The constant movement of food through the digestive system causes cells to be damaged and lost, and constant repair is necessary. Cells in organs such as the heart do not divide in the adult, except in cases where disease or trauma causes damage. Then again, cells in the nervous system and the brain do not divide after birth, which is why an injury to the spine is usually irreversible. So, objective 1 was to explain the problems that growth causes for cells. The larger the cell becomes, 1, the more demand the cell places on its DNA, and 2, a larger cell is less efficient in moving nutrients and waste materials across the cell's membrane. So, objective 2, let's compare asexual and sexual reproduction. In single-cell organisms, cell division is a form of reproduction. A unicellular organism, division of one cell, reproduces the entire organism. Multicellular organisms, as I said before, divide because they need to develop from a fertilized cell. For growth reasons, it gets too large, and they also need to repair themselves sometimes too. Again, cell division is a very important part of the cell cycle. So let's look at asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is reproduction that involves a single parent producing an offspring. The offspring produced are, in most cases, genetically identical to the single cell that produced them. Asexual reproduction is simple, efficient, and a very effective way for an organism to produce a large number of offspring. Both prokaryotic and eukaryotic single-cell organisms and many multicellular organisms can reproduce asexually. Bacteria, for example, reproduce by what's called binary fission. Here's a picture of bacteria, and this is basically what happens right here. All right. Also, the calachoa plant forms these little platelets. And then another example is the hydras. They reproduce by having little buds come off of them. These are all good examples of asexual reproduction. So let's look at sexual reproduction. In sexual reproduction, offspring are produced by the fusion of two sex cells, which we call gametes, one from each of the two parents. These fuse into a single cell before the offspring can grow. The offspring produced inherit some genetic information from both parents. Most animals and plants and many single-celled organisms do also reproduce sexually. So, why do you think bacterial infections spread so quickly through schools based on what you just learned about asexual and sexual reproduction? And here is a nice comparison chart for you too. So objective 2, compare asexual and sexual reproduction. The production of genetically identical offspring from a single parent is known as asexual production, and offspring produced by sexual reproduction inherit some of their genetic information from each parent. All right, and that is my cute little picture for you for the day. Enjoy, and we're moving on to mitosis. Bye.